Okay, good morning, everyone. It's getting close to noon. I think we're ahead of time. So let me see if I can make this work. Yes, I can. There's a bit of a time lag, I think, on it. There we go. So again, good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be with you at the blockchain at this blockchain event, and to talk to you a bit about a stock exchange. I think we heard quite a few comments earlier about stock exchanges and what are stock exchanges doing, and they are legacy components in the capital markets industry. Well, not all of them. I think we are a new kid on the block, and maybe a few words about us before I share some thoughts and consideration around cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and what it means for the stock exchange space. Well, we are an exchange that started operating 3 years ago, so we're brand new here in Canada, a senior stock exchange, and that means, to be very clear with you, that we do not list venture companies, so be aware of that, but we only list senior companies. And an exchange that was founded, as you can see, by a group of prominent financial institutions who wanted to see some change, who wanted to see a different way of looking at stock exchanges. And that different way of looking at stock exchanges is driven by one word that I heard a few times today also, and that word, or that expression I should probably say, is doing what is right. And that is the entire philosophy behind NEO, behind our stock exchange. Doing what is right for investors, doing what is right for issuers. Maybe the microphone didn't agree with that statement, but it's what it's all about. And okay, there we go. Okay. So what have we achieved since we launched? Well, 3 years ago. Well, what we achieved, which I think is not a bad realization, today as a stock exchange here in Canada, we represent 10%, approximately 10% of all volume traded in Canadian listed companies, whether they're listed with us, TSX, Canadian Securities Exchange, 10% of that volume. And why have investors come to us? Why are dealers using us? Because we provide them a different model, a model which is focused on quality of execution, a model which is focused on liquidity, a model which is focused on giving investors, again, and issuers a better experience. And our intention, of course, is to continue to do that and to grow that business, and we see a lot of opportunity to do that. But we are not just an exchange where you can trade securities. We are an exchange also where you can list. And we started listing exchange traded funds on our company we started in 2016 with the first one, and there we go. And today we have close to 70 funds listed on our exchange, directly competing in that space and attracting those ETF manufacturers to our venue. And I expect to see much more coming in the coming months and years, as you can imagine. But we also started to list our first corporate listings, and the first one listed at the end of last year. Now we are at 6, 7 and 8 are there, and we have a clear visibility on growing that landscape also. Those are the kinds of things we have been doing from an exchange perspective. And then I would like to bring your attention maybe to one of our issuers that joined us this year, and which fits very nicely in this conference. And that issuer is Ether Capital. We said earlier, in exchanges, retail investors cannot have access to blockchain, cannot have access to some of those digital assets and cryptocurrencies. Well, in fact, they can. There is today, and this was a first globally, a corporate listed on NEO which has invested 90% of his assets in Ethereum. It's available. It's a public listing available to everyone. Not everyone is necessarily aware of that, but what you are investing in when you look at this company is, however, more than Ethereum. And that is what makes this proposition so interesting. You're investing in a company that today holds Ethereum as an asset, but has a vision about that asset, which is not investing in Ethereum as an end in itself, but investing in Ethereum as a fuel, as a vehicle that can be used and leveraged, and that Ether Capital is going to use and leverage to enable the future economy. They're going to use it to invest in new initiatives. They're going to use it to enable acquisitions. They're going to use it to enable what the blockchain promises. And I think that that is really what you want. You don't want to look at cryptocurrencies as, again, an end in itself, but you want to look at it as a vehicle, a tool, a fuel that will enable that promise that blockchain represents for us in the future. So one example of something very unique that a stock exchange has done in this case that we have done. There's another component to NEO and to our exchange that people know a little bit less about, but we also made available a fund distribution platform, a platform that allows funds that are not listed on an exchange to be accessible to investors. That fund was launched, that the distribution platform was launched a year and a half ago, and has today, as you can see, allowed fund manufacturers using it to raise close to $600 million. And here again, we did something very unique. We launched on that platform, again, a first, a trust, a fund, an open-ended fund that has been manufactured by First Block Capital, which is a Bitcoin trust. So you have now today a fund that is available through a well-distributed fund distribution platform in which you can invest, and that will give you exposure to Bitcoin. And again, what is important over here, the manufacturer behind this fund, First Block Capital, is an organization that is more than just an organization that wants to provide you with an asset. It's an organization with a vision that looks at cryptocurrency as a tool that will enable the industry or the world of tomorrow. And as an exchange, that is what we want to do. We want to enable these types of initiatives. We want to enable that access to these types of assets, but we want to enable it if we know that there is a clear vision about how this is going to fuel the economy of tomorrow. And that takes me probably to the second topic that I wanted to cover with you, and that is share some considerations with you about cryptocurrency and blockchain. So I think I used the words quite a few times. Cryptocurrency, digital or tokens are not an end in themselves. I'm going to say something very blunt. I don't believe that Bitcoin or Ethereum is a value store. I think that it's far too early to make statements of that nature. And a lot of people believe that. And a lot of people have been driven by the hype around these cryptocurrencies. And a lot of people have speculated. And a lot of people today are disappointed. And that is sad. That is wrong. And that creates a lot of disillusion around what these cryptocurrencies could be. And I think what we really need to think about is, what is it that we seek to achieve? What is it that is important? And what is important is not the cryptocurrencies. It is the technology that's behind it. It's a distributed ledger technology. It is blockchain. And it's the way that those tools are promising an incredible future efficiency, are promising incredible possibilities from a cost savings perspective. I think that that is where the reality is, and that is where the tangible economy kicks in. We need to look at the technology as an enabler of a new economy. We need to look at the technology as something that's going to give us efficiencies, cost savings, opportunities that are not available to us today. Just like internet allowed us to achieve incredible opportunities that were not available before. That is where everything has to start. That is where our focus has to be. And we have to focus on leveraging that technology to enable new solutions, build new solutions, build new applications, turn the promise into reality. What I find extremely rewarding, and that is the very good news message, that is to see all those initiatives. We had a number of examples today about companies investing in that technology, enabling that technology, unleashing those possibilities and those efficiencies. And we talked about Walmart earlier today. That's a good example. There are many more examples of solutions that are emerging and that are showing us and delivering that blockchain promise. That is where our focus has to be today. And then when you look at some of those cryptocurrencies, I think that they will become the fuel of those solutions. And my personal prediction, without looking at any technical analysis, my view on those currencies is that they will take up again. They will not take up because we think that they reach a certain resistance or a certain level in supply or demand or whatever it is. They will take up when they are going to be part of the real economy. And I think that we always have to look at this as how is it going to help the real economy. So I'm a big believer, and once we'll start to see those solutions emerging and those solutions delivering on the promise, that's when you're going to start to see those assets again gaining in value, and then maybe become a store of value. But it's far too early today to come with statements of that nature. Shifting back to the third point then, how about blockchain and exchanges? So I gave you a couple of examples of what an exchange is doing today to enable access to that new world. But how is that new world going to impact the stock exchange world? How about securities tokens? Are they going to be there? Are they going to be real? Are they going to take over? Well, let me give you again a bold prediction. I have no doubt that the world in which I'm living today, the world of the stock exchanges, is going to be very different of what we know today. I have no doubt that securities tokens are going to be a reality. I have no doubt that companies will raise capital through security tokens. I have no doubts that the entire settlement process of transactions that take place on exchanges will become multiple times more efficient than today, will lead to tremendous cost savings, will unleash capital that today is blocked to allow what is an old legacy process to proceed. I have no doubts about that. And the big question, of course, is how long will that take? When will that happen? Well, that's where I'm afraid I have to say to you, it's not going to happen tomorrow. And I know that there's a lot of people who would love to see that happening tomorrow. Well, this is going to take years. This is going to take quite a few years, because what we are touching here are fundamental components that are underpinning our economy. And the regulators and the governments and the central banks will not just let that get totally out of control. It is not going to be a revolution, it is going to be an evolution, and an evolution that will allow us to get to that end state, that optimal end state, in what I believe will be a safe way. Should we be looking at the regulators and expect from them to come with all the answers? It was one of the discussions that came up in the panel before. No, we should not. We should not ask them to be the ones that will give us all the answers. And I think that's a role that we all have to play. I think that we play a very important role in discovering, inventing that new world, and inventing it with a set of values around us that will make sure, again, that we do what is right. What is right for the investors and what is right for the companies that will seek to raise capital. And we see it today. There is a lot of bad actors out there, and there's a lot of issues out there, and there will always be bad actors. And if we just unleash this without any mechanisms that will seek to control and avert this, well, there's going to be a lot of issues, and there's going to be a lot of distrust, and it's probably even going to delay it more. So I think what we need to do as stakeholders in this industry, and in this industry specifically, the exchange industry, the capital markets, that is work on those solutions, work together on those solutions, and look at tackling the many issues around it, and come with proposals to the regulators, and not say, you come to us with a solution. I was reading an article yesterday in the US saying, regulators, give us a framework, or otherwise we're going to move away. No, regulators, this is our suggested framework. What do you think about it? Because we spent some real good time making sure that there is investor protection in there. We spent some real good time to make sure that the settlement process is going to give you finality when a transaction takes place using the blockchain. I think that is the role that we have to play. We also have to come with solutions and ideas around the other problems. Think about standardization. It's great to say about we're going to create a World Wide Web based on blockchain to allow securities to trade in a totally democratized and free way. But we're all speaking different languages. So we have to make sure that we work on those standards. There's a great initiative for those who have not followed it, undertaken today by ISDA around putting in place a framework for tokenizing derivatives. I think those are great initiatives driven by the industry to define what that world tomorrow should be. NEO itself is probably the only exchange, no, it's not probably, is the only exchange in Canada that did not make any statements about what we're doing in that space. Are we engaging in trading cryptocurrency? Are we engaging in tokenizing securities, things of that nature? We didn't say anything. Why didn't we say anything? Because we don't want to be part of the hype. We want to execute on things that we believe in and that we have properly defined. I think the two examples that I gave you around Ether Capital, the example that I gave you about First Block Bitcoin Trust are two examples of tangible things that we did. And when it comes to securities tokenization, of course we're looking at it, of course we're thinking about it, and of course we're working on a number of ideas, but we're doing it in a step-by-step approach, making sure that we talk with the right people, making sure that we talk with industry stakeholders, so that when we come with a solution, it is something that is real, it is something that is tangible, and it's something that has been thought through. And to be very honest with you, looking at the entire landscape in front of me, where I look at the many initiatives that I hear, as I said, a lot of hype, a lot of promises, very few executions, and very few things that are being realized. And a lot of people are underestimating what is the most important thing in enabling that world of tomorrow. That is that we need to enable it not by creating something totally new out there in the field, but we're going to enable it by building bridges between our economy of today and that economy of tomorrow. We have to build the bridges, we have to leverage the assets that we have, and we have to grow towards that new world. That is the way that we look at it. And my prediction, and I'll give you my last prediction for today, that is that exchanges are in fact in a very interesting position. People often forget that. People look at a stock exchange, that's where you trade, that's where you list securities. Well, in fact, no. What a stock exchange is a distribution channel. People never think about that. It's a distribution channel. We are connected to the world. We are connected to dealers. We are connected to investors, institutional investors, retail investors. We are a distribution channel. The second thing that we are is we are a regulatory entity. So we are there to regulate certain matters, and in particular, we play a very important role in regulating new issuers. Make sure that when they come to the market, they are of the right quality, and that we take into account a number of key principles to make sure that when they go public and people start to invest in them, we minimize the risks of a bad experience. Those two assets that exchanges have are extremely valuable. And if you can combine those in a proper way with the right use of the new technologies, I think that is probably where you will find your securitized tokens exchange of tomorrow. And that is a strategy that we are following, and that's the way that we are looking at things today. More to come about that, but again, don't expect too many announcements from our part on that matter. We continue to do our homework. We continue to analyze, identify, understand how we can leverage those new technologies to give investors and issuers a better experience, but driven by that one principle, which is the core value of NEO, doing what is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jos.